Today we have hot off the presses Nintendo's fiscal year report for the year ending March 31st, 2020. So info on all aspects of the company through that date. So I wanted to breeze through this thing and take a look at some of the highlights. In terms of console sales, the new total for the Switch family sits at 55.77 million systems sold, meaning they put up close to about 3.3 million system sales during this past quarter, which is pretty good considering these are the months following the holidays, which is obviously the holidays are when the big numbers for the year come up. They do have some of that COVID demand in there with everyone being locked up. Demand for gaming content obviously went way up. I'll actually be more interested to see this quarter in terms of system sales, the one we're in right now, because you have the lockdown time, but also more of the time with the stock issues they've been having. So I wonder how that's all going to factor in the end. Like, in terms of sales, this virus has been kind of a gift as well as a curse, because you can sell systems, but also you're not producing them quite fast enough. Software sales are also currently at 356.24 million units sold. I think I've said this before, but man, it's crazy to me how fast they're coming up on the 3DS. In terms of software, less than 30 million game sales separate them now, which is surely thanks to the Switch's strong sales performers, which, let's talk about the game I'm sure everyone is eager to take a look at. Animal Crossing New Horizons, as of this past quarter, has sold 11.77 million copies, making it the 7th highest selling Switch game of all time. And that's not even the crazy part. Remember, people, with this number, you've got to keep in mind that the cutoff was March 31st. New Horizons came out March 20th. So this is only counting the game's first 11 days on the shelf, which also means in those first 11 days, it averaged more than 1 million copies sold per day. Tom Nook is really swimming in those bells right now. I mean, this one, I expected it to do great, and even with the current ongoings with the COVID stuff, I assumed it would also get a boost from that, but I still wasn't predicting these kinds of numbers. Well deserved too, it's a great game. Glad to see it doing so well. Another performer that I'm not as fond of, but still definitely think is worth taking note of, is Pokemon Sword and Shield. At the time of this report, it has hit 17.37 million copies sold, putting it in range of Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. I think it is very likely that we'll see this game overtake those two at some point, which would put it in the number 3 spot, right behind Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I believe this also makes it a better seller than all of the 3DS Pokemon games. Some of the older ones I believe still have it beat, but yeah, quite a feat there as well. Pokemon is just a force. It's too powerful. Speaking of, Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX also made it onto the list of million-plus sellers for the Switch. That game has put up about 1.26 million copies sold since release. Digital sales are also way up across the board, which isn't surprising as that's been the trend for a while, and again, this virus going on is going to make that shoot up even further. Like myself, I'm a huge physical games guy, and I know I've been buying a lot of games digitally just because, I don't want to venture to the store just to pick up a game. And in the online front, in their conference call with investors, they noted, largely thanks to Pokemon and Animal Crossing, that the number of Switch Online subscribers has passed 15 million users. A pretty good attach rate, I think. But that also, I would keep in mind, doesn't break things down into like how many of those users are on trials and various promotions, as well as like the family plan, which I know a lot of people utilize the family plan to get big discounts with like their friends and that. Still pretty good though, definitely in terms of what it's offering, because I think the Switch Online is pretty weak overall. I don't think there are too many reasons to say signed up for it. Luckily, the ones that are there, again, like Pokemon and Animal Crossing, are just so popular that you're going to get pretty good numbers. And when they talk about projections for the upcoming year, they start off immediately by mentioning COVID, and they expect many aspects of the business to be down this year as a result. There is, and rightfully so, sort of an asterisk on any predictions, right? As we can't know how bad or how long things are going to continue to be affected. Still, though, like I said in that previous video, it is kind of disheartening to see in terms of the upcoming releases they're pumping up pretty much the same stuff we know about. If I was an investor, I don't know how great I'd feel about how all they talk about past June, which is next month, is like Smash as well as Sword and Shield's DLC. Not great. Clubhouse Games, though, up there dead center as one of the big games they're pushing. Hopefully it can carry a lot of weight because it's looking like there isn't going to be much coming in these next few months at least. And like I said in my previous video as well, it's got to be even more disheartening to hear this when it seems like the competition is going to be unveiling a bunch of info in the coming months for the lineups for the Series X and PlayStation 5 systems. We've got Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest thing that was recently announced that has just about every major player in the industry confirmed to be participating, except for Nintendo. Again, COVID has and will continue to affect things, but Nintendo seems like they're having a much harder time right now than just about everybody else. And another thing that came out of their conference call with investors was that they said the Switch is, quote, barely in the middle of its life, which I've seen some people kind of going crazy about in terms of using it as a predictor of the future of Switch hardware, like when we may expect to see a successor in that. To me, this really doesn't mean much of anything. As far as a Switch hardware upgrade like a Switch Pro, it means absolutely zero. We could get one tomorrow or a year from now, and that statement could still be true. But even in terms of a true successor, the release of a brand new system wouldn't necessarily mean the Switch just immediately gets cut off in terms of support. It often feels that way, right, with Nintendo, but it's like, we could get a brand new system in 2 years, and if the Switch still gets some support for like a year or so after that, then again, the statement still holds true. And that doesn't say anything in terms of like what level of support the Switch would get at that point. Having only like 1 or 2 games even released throughout an entire year would still technically count as it getting support. So yeah, personally, I wouldn't read much into this in terms of a predictor on the future of the Switch's life. Overall, this was a pretty strong quarter and previous year for Nintendo, but like I've been saying, while I figured that was going to be the case, obviously Pokemon Sword and Shield were huge. I knew Animal Crossing was going to move a lot of software and hardware, maybe not as much as it did, but I knew it was going to be big. But going forward, I'm definitely not as optimistic about the rest of the year right now. Games like Xenoblade Chronicles and yeah, Clubhouse Games, they're not going to be able to put up anywhere near those types of numbers, guys, okay? And sorry, the Smash and Pokemon DLC will certainly be successful, but DLC does not make up for not having actual full game releases, at least not in my opinion. The Switch has had a really great, a barely first half of its life, but with the new crop of consoles set to release by this holiday, this is going to be the time where the system is really going to be tested. Yes, it has the benefit of being different, but people are surely still going to be deciding going forward if they want to buy a Switch or if that money would be better suited going towards one of these new systems. And if that choice, say this holiday, ends up being like, do I want to play the new Halo, Assassin's Creed, Cyberpunk, God of War, etc. on a Series X or PlayStation 5, or buy a Switch to play Clubhouse Games, I think this could be a rough year. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on the latest Nintendo financial report in the comments. Are you surprised at just how well Animal Crossing is performing? And how are you feeling about the forecast for Nintendo Switch over this next fiscal year? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of Nintendo's latest financial report. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter at JohnnyZakari. And join my Discord, ChiGuy and Friends. Link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.